Welcome to the Ascension Path with Twin Essence. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Marley, and we're your Starseed Lightworker and Psychic Medium hosts.
We're identical twins with spiritual abilities and Starseed missions on Earth. On the Ascension Path, we discuss what it's like to be identical twins serving in a spiritual capacity and provide insights into our work as Starseeds. We create a sacred space to receive channeled messages, intuitive teachings, and expansive conversations that elevate your frequency and support your evolution. Join us to learn about navigating the path to Ascension and becoming the most authentic, aligned version of you. Take what resonates and leave the rest.
In this episode, we are going to be diving into the Andromeda Galaxy. So, we are talking about Andromeda, which is a spiral galaxy, and it is closest to the Milky Way. So just to kind of set the stage a little bit, so you know where you're looking in space when we talk about Andromedans today.
Andromedans. So, we're going to start with physical traits, I think. How do we see Andromedans? How do they appear? Typically, Andromedans can appear in any color of the rainbow in our experience. So we often will actually experience them as being a deep blue or a violet color.
Yes.
But we have had them appear as various colors of the rainbow. They're not really tied to one distinct color in our experiences. And they have a very distinct physical image, I think is how I'll describe it when they come through. Lacey and I always describe them as having cone heads.
Yes, that's the best description of them. They just have a very elongated head. Oftentimes, we've seen them as having a hollowed out piece through that elongated head, if what I'm describing makes any sense.
Yeah, it's almost like I want to call it a horn, but it's like not a horn. It's just like this hollowed piece that comes through the cone part of their head. That's how I've seen a couple Andromedans before. It's just a very interesting, like, physical trademark that they have. The other thing is sometimes they actually have wings too. And it can depend on the type, but different kinds of wings, whether it be like very large ones, whether they are more light form versus like the typical like feathered wings is what you might think of them as.
And I think too, we've seen them before having a cloak or having a cape on as well, which is not uncommon for many different starseeds when they come through in a physical image to humans, but that's just one thing that we've seen with them too.
And humanoid. They are more of a humanoid appearance. We don't typically see Andromedans having the half animal appearance. They typically have that physical humanoid hallmark to their appearances.
And sometimes they will come through as light. So if they come through as light, it may just be a shape. It could be a humanoid shape, but usually when they're light, they don't necessarily have physical characteristics or traits to them.
For sure. So when we start to feel into Andromedan energy, they often come through as a slower paced energy. Not to say that they are a slower star being, because they're not. They are typically going to be very fixated on freedom. Like in terms of personality traits, we typically see them having this affinity for freedom. They don't like authority. They don't like systems and structures that put them in a box because they like to have the freedom to do what they want. They don't want to be tied down. They want to go and act and be whoever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want.
Usually in a star seed on Earth, if you're an Andromedan star seed, we also see it manifest as like a love of travel, meaning that they're very free. They just they're nomadic. They kind of roam place to place. Again, as Lacey mentioned, not wanting that structure, that hierarchy, those 3D structures that we see in government. They don't like being told what to do. They just want to go with the flow, go with their feeling. They also are very eccentric in a sense, so they're your unique personalities or your eccentric neighbor maybe in your community.
Definitely, like the image coming through is like a fur jacket and red cowboy boots and just something very different that's going to stand out and make you be like, okay, this person's got an interesting style. They're very different. I think when you actually compare them to a lot of the other different star beings that we've talked about, They are going to be more rebellious than those other, like rebellious, but not to the degree that Orions are. Rebellious in a sense of not liking structures and wanting to dress how they want. They're going to be the person that doesn't want a dress code at work. They're going to be the person that shows up wearing a costume that's going all out at a costume party rather than just something simple thrown together.
They're also bringing through a reference of the people who are cash only. Like the people who are like hiding the money under the mattress still, or like putting money into a book. Like basically, they can't track us if we're using cash kind of a thing.
Yeah, they're just unique personalities and they don't want to be tied down to really anything. The other thing with travel too is a lot of times Andromedans love planes. They like to be in the air. It reminds them of being on the ship, if you will. But human travel is a lot slower than what they're used to. So you might actually get signs of impatience with travel or waiting in lines for things or the time it takes to get from point A to B. They get really impatient. A lot of starseeds are impatient just because the density, the 3D density slowing things down. But Andromedans are they're used to the fast pace, okay? They are used to go, go, go. And when we channel Andromedans, they usually come through in slowing down our senses, slowing down our processing speed. It does remind me a little bit of Arcturians in that sense, but that is because they are such a high dimensional being. They usually exist in those higher dimensions, and they are very fast, as Lacey mentioned. So when we start to channel them, they have to kind of contort their way down to closer to a 3D sense for us to be able to make contact with them, even though we are raising our vibration as well to contact them. That's part of the reason it slows our processing speed down and how we receive the information from them. It's quantum physics, right? When we see those third dimensional items, they're vibrating at a slower pace than the higher dimensional ones, so that's why they come through that way. The other thing is, it's not all just fun and games for an Andromedan. They're not just here for one wild night to dress and be whoever they want. They are here for a purpose, and they do like to empower others to be themselves. They really like to work on that self-acceptance and be exactly who you want to be and don't hold back. So they're really here for that self-acceptance piece as well as innovation. When we channel Andromedans, we view them and how they come through to us as these time-space engineers. So again, it goes back to that slow energy, but also very fast energy in the higher dimensions because we just see them as we always see them as traveling on the craft, just like zoom, going really fast with the blink of an eye. But as time-space engineers, they really have an understanding of how to slow things down or speed things up, I would say, depending on the dimension you're in and what type of healing or transmutation may be happening. The way they are currently describing it to me is this altered reality, if you will. So those that are Andromedan star seeds or just connect to Andromedan star beings, like often experience this loss of time or a time warp where maybe you're driving from point A to B, but you don't remember it, is how they're describing and showing it to me. It's often how their interactions with humans will end up. And it's the same with the altered reality that I mentioned. Like when you are connecting to them, it's going to be a very different feeling and memory than maybe what it actually was. So even if you're going into a meditative state to connect with them, you might think, oh, I'm just going to do a quick connection to my star Andromedan star family. It's going to be a 20-minute one. You might come out of that an hour later. Or maybe you think you're gonna meditate for an hour, but you come out of it within 20 minutes. Like it's this concept of time that we as humans don't completely understand because it's so dense here. They are able to do that altered state and altered reality as they engineer the speed of light and the speed of time, essentially, because time is just a construct. It can be really great to actually help you with sleep. So, as humans, we often struggle a lot with sleep, especially as we talk about going through an ascension process. You experience a lot of changes in your 3D reality, changes to your physical body and your habits as well.
We always think of Andromedans as being really helpful when you need things to slow down so you can close out your conscious mind and hopefully get some sleep if your body does need physical rest.
The other thing Andromedans are bringing through is their technological advancement skills. So I think of Andromedans as being very high tech, and they are going to be the individuals that will often advance civilizations. So that we're talking like innovation, developing new systems and processes, new technologies. We're talking research and science. We're talking healing the body. This is really the realm in which Andromedan star beings operate in. They are forward thinking. I actually am thinking like Aquarius, like Aquarian thinking. It's very Aquarian, is how they come through. But it's that high tech innovation, engineering. They are going to be the ones that will set up the future of a civilization. And it again goes back to that time space continuum relating back to quantum physics, quantum healing. Like they are the individuals on Earth right now. They are planting those seeds. They truly have an understanding of quantum physics, an understanding of how to heal on a quantum level, an understanding of the quantum field. So that is what I think of them as to a T. And you also see them taking up healing modalities, I would say too. Now, I know that generally starseeds are always viewed as providing healing modalities on Earth, but I see them as taking up holistic healing modalities or just ways to heal the body on a quantum level, whether the humans on Earth realize it or not through the modality they're using. And the other thing they are bringing through is part of what their seeds on Earth are doing right now is serving as examples. So we're talking about examples on a large scale, but also in a smaller community scale, if you will. And when I say example, is they're leading by example to really show other humans different ways of thinking, different ways of living their life, different ways of viewing. Like the way they're saying it to me is it doesn't always have to be so hard. Like being a starseed doesn't always have to be so hard. There's a lot of benefits to it. There's a lot of fun to being a starseed. You don't always have to be weighed down. The example coming to my mind right now is Palladians. Like,
Oh, yep.
because we know, Marley and I know, Palladians can be very serious about their mission and they can get very like heartsick, if you will, or discouraged by external noise that's happening around them in the world. And it can get them down, feeling down with their mission and discouraged. Whereas Andromedans are like, look, this doesn't need to be that hard. This is really fun. We like being the rainbow in the darkness. We like being the light that's shining and bouncing around. We like being different. We like being the spectacle, if you will. So they're giving that message too as have fun with it. It doesn't need to always feel like life or death, or if I don't do this, I'm gonna fail at my life mission.
They're also talking about looks being deceiving. Obviously, Lacey and I are giving examples of like various eccentric individuals as it relates to being Andromedan. Like they keep referencing like Elton John or people that stand out. There's no one like that person, right? Like when you think of some individuals, you're like, there's no one else like that person, really. You can't find someone to compare them to. And that's where they're talking about looks being deceiving, in that they might look this way or they might have an incarnation on Earth where they look a certain way, but in reality, they also bring a strong skill set and logic and analytical side to them that allows them to do really well with the holistic healing, with the science, and with the technological advancements.
Now all I want to do is sing Rocket Man.
It made me think of like IT individuals, because those in the IT profession always get pinned as being like quiet and shy and reserved, and they always seem like they're just kind of keeping to themselves. And those could be your Andromedans, right?
I also think of game developers like that are
Yes.
really like pushing the needle and moving people forward in terms of technology. And the way they're showing it to me is like you were saying Rocket Man. And they were showing me it's the change makers, right? It's the people that are going first before someone else goes first. They're gonna set the trend. And the phrase, like, I don't know why, but the sassy phrase of what they said was, it's called fashion. Like, standing out and wearing something really bold. I'm thinking like Lady Gaga in the meat dress. Oh,
Like,
I'm thinking of Emily in Paris. Oh my gosh, what is the fashion designer's name on there? The fashion designer on there who was super eccentric and that they're just trying to please, and that's exactly who I think of. Very, very Andromedan. And I think that sometimes with the innovation part of their roles and the empowerment and the serving as an example, it gets lost that they do have these bubbly personalities and they are really fun to interact with. They have a very holistic approach to how they do healing. So it's a really balanced approach to intuition and logic, right? They're going to use logic when they need to, and then intuition when they need to. The way I'm seeing it is a lot of times when they bring through a channeled piece to one of their seeds, it's going to come through in a somewhat logic based way because they also need humans to understand it. Really, that logic piece is kind of like a 3D construct to a degree.
yep, that makes complete sense.
The other thing is that Andromedans sometimes get compared to Arcturians in the sense that there are claims, or some have channeled before, that they believe there is a doorway through Andromedan energy. And I know we talked about Arcturians prior and how Arcturians are like that light at the end of the tunnel. Arcturians serve as that transition gateway that souls move through. The same comparison is being made to Andromedans at times. Many channels actually claim that this doorway is through the Antares star, which is part of the Scorpius constellation, and that through this star, there's this doorway that allows souls to transport through Andromedan energy, and that souls do this when they're in their incarnation process to remember or reactivate soul memories and transmute past life energies. So this is kind of similar to Arcturus in that there are claims or channeled messages regarding a doorway for souls. So, what do you think about that, Marley? Do you feel like there is a gateway, or are you getting any sense from them on this? This feels very channeled here. This is a very channeled piece of information from the Andromedans. Well, so first thing that's coming up is playing devil's advocate here. Devil's advocate on the 3D side being that we know that the Andromeda, or it's an Andromeda galaxy, and it's close to the Milky Way. And I think we've all seen visuals of what that Milky Way looks like, and we've seen what Andromeda looks like. And I sometimes think that the human part of our brains wants to immediately say that's a portal, therefore there's a doorway there. So that's me playing devil's advocate that questioning, is there really a doorway to pass through in this galaxy? Or maybe that in itself explains a doorway. Maybe because it's a galaxy, but on the flip side, maybe that in itself is enough evidence to explain that there is a doorway or a bridge or something that souls pass through because it looks like a portal, it's a galaxy. Then again, you compare it to Arcturus, and Arcturus is just a star. So why does Arcturus get to be a portal? So the way that it's being shown to me by them is yes, there is a doorway, if you will. However, what does that actually mean? What is a doorway? Because other planets and other star beings and constellations, who's to say they don't have doorways and portals? Doesn't mean it's going to serve the same purpose like Arcturus did or Andromedans does, but doorways, portals, whatever, if you will, whatever phrase you want to call it, it's not something unique to only one planet or star being, right? Andromedans, we think of innovators and their high tech. Of course, they have their own passage or doorway, if you will. That's how they're showing it to me. But it does not serve the same purpose as the Arcturus passageway will. So an Andromedan doorway and passage is going to be different than in the Arcturus one.
I think it's super limiting to think too that just because there's a doorway, that it immediately means that all souls incarnating, or there's this choice that souls incarnating have to pass through it. That is a message we receive from Arcturians, right? We understand the transitionary energy that Arcturians bring for incarnation, but why do we automatically jump to souls must incarnate and pass through that? I think of the Pleiades star cluster, like that's a cluster, right? So immediately I know there's doorways within the Pleiades cluster there. I think there's star seeds that pass through Pleiades doorways all the time. I don't think it has to necessarily always be related to the incarnation, though. I think it could be doorways that the star seeds are passing through in the astral realm when they are reporting back to their star family or reporting back to their council, the founders. So I think that it doesn't always amount to, well, it must be related to the incarnation that some souls choose to reactivate memories and past life healing. I just think that's maybe, as weird as this sounds, it actually seems very 3D to put that label on it.
The way they're also showing it to me is the Arcturus doorway or gateway passageway is all about that healing and integration between incarnations.
Yep.
It is very supportive of human incarnations, is how they're showing it to me. And the seeds that are traveling to Earth right now, to and from, back and forth, whatever you want to call it. The Andromedan doorway or passageway is what they're showing me. It actually looks like this cosmic highway. Like
Hmm.
it's fast moving. It's where the ships are going. They're passing the night. And it feels very open to all. It doesn't feel like it's a secret. It doesn't feel like it's something that they regulate. And it doesn't feel like it's guarded. It just feels like this is part of their service to the bigger mission. And those that want to use it are able to use it. Those that don't have to.
And I actually link that analogy directly to that time space engineer concept again. We know Andromedans have this ability, so it would make sense that as it relates to the technology side of them, that other star beings are able to travel through that, and it might help them move into different densities quicker, different dimensions, report back to Earth if they need to, kind of move back and forth and within all these different dimensions, and that all star beings are using it, not just Andromedans.
It feels very much like it is something for the good of all. And they are not gatekeeping that, as they are not going to be sitting there with their scepter saying, "You shall not pass," is how they're showing it to me. So it's just one of the ways in which they work on a holistic approach to balancing everything and communicating with all star beings.
And they just brought back a 3D example, rooting us back to Earth with this analogy of when interstates were created, at least in the US, thinking about the interstate system for transportation and just even transportation in general, when you think about starting out with railroads and railroads going across the country, and then we move into interstates and automobiles. But again, goes back to that innovative energy of Andromedan star seeds on Earth. And perhaps that is part of where they brought through those higher dimensional ideas to Earth to interconnect throughout the country.
Before we close out, just a couple of channeled messages from Andromedans for our Andromedan starseeds that are currently listening. They would like to bring through some guidance for their seeds on Earth right now. One of the things coming through is about being enough. So it is all about how you are defining yourself and the work that you do, and whether it's enough right now. The way they're describing it to me is it is enough. It is enough to be working on yourself and healing yourself. It is enough to be accepting yourself. So being okay with your journey not looking the same as someone else that's sitting next to you.
And really, the self-acceptance part of this, it's acceptance for the self, but it's acceptance for the collective. And we've talked about this before, but this directly relates to your ascension process and Earth's ascension process. It does not mean that you're not going to put in energy and effort to make change where you feel change is needed. However, be willing to accept who you are as you are so that you're able to continue to work towards your mission in this lifetime. Just be willing to accept the collective for who they are and how they choose to do things, even if it appears different from yours.
The other theme coming through is regarding patience, and I know we talked about that a little bit earlier, but the way they are saying it is change isn't going to happen overnight. Change takes a long time, and big changes take even longer in human years than what you might be used to density wise. So they are wanting to reiterate that it's important that you trust yourself and what you're doing right now, and you tap into your own inner power and sense of security with the work that you're doing. And don't get caught up in the 3D time issue because the energy is going to be more important than the time. And change is going to take time. And it's not always going to have external validation right away that it's working.
And the last message they bring through is you move first, Earth follows. So be willing to stand out, be willing to do what you need to do to achieve your mission, and try not to get caught up in the human emotion of it because you move first. Earth will follow.
And with that, we will wrap up this episode. Next time, we will be digging into UFOs, abductions, the Zeta Reticuli.
Dun dun dun!